Okay.
With sound.
The Two Strong Dudes Show.
Episode 2 with a mic on.
Take 2, episode 2.
Take
because luckily we caught it at 35 seconds. All you guys out there and realized that we chatted and weren't recording the sound.
Nope.
So as much as we'd like to let you just look at our faces.
Some pretty faces.
Yep.
That was about the end of that.
Yeah. So we was just saying that it's a thing now. We almost didn't do it this week. This week was real tough. I moved, a lot of things going on. There's a lot. But when is there not things going on in life? And as I was driving someplace today, I was like, man, I should really tell Ian I had to hold off till next week. Then I was like, you know what? If we do it, it's a thing. Second time in a row, and then it will be third time in a row, and then it just becomes like a regular.
It becomes a thing.
Yeah. Plus, like, we got all these beverages to drink.
That is true. We have a plethora of.
We're starting off with shout out to Building 3 Coffee. I think it's a cherry peach draft craft kombucha.
Super good.
Delicious. We'll probably get halfway through that. We got some mead sitting out here.
That's a Go Patch.
We got some Go Patch apricot sour. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Get back into it. We made a lot of notes the first time we flipped back. We made notes. You made notes.
We had a ton of stuff.
We had, a ton of things we were going to talk about. We kind of time-stamped it all, and then we didn't do it.
No.
We kind of touched on a little bit of it, and so today we wrote competing, how to get huge, and strong men. Physical, family, and stoic are the notes. And that's all the notes we're going to need, because we're just going to go down rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask first. So you got a competition coming up.
Yep.
When is it? What is it?
So I've got 2. I've got August 12th. I have Colorado Strongest Man.
That one I knew about. Yep.
Brando's putting that one on, and I believe it's at CrossFit Rail Stop out in Peyton.
Okay.
And then I've got Sunday Paper Classic up in Denver, which is the whole thing's for St. Jude's. So really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, really
Is
cool.
that the one? Oh, because it's benefits, you kind of jumped into it.
Yep.
You shared something today, something else coming up too.
My buddy
Richard
Andrew, my buddy Andrew's actually putting on one. And I'm going to be that guy on a podcast that looks something up on his phone. And I hate being that dude, but I'm going to do it.
Rogan does it, but he just has a guy.
Right, he has a dude that's just like, hey, Google this for me, and then he figures it out. I agree. I love it. See, there's a really good, Andrew's putting on one, and it is the October Octane Overload. That's a mouthful, a lot of O's.
When is it in October?
It is October 21st.
Okay, good.
And it's definitely, I would say, the way he's got it set up, really cool, old school. He has a tire flip medley, which is really cool.
Doesn't show up as often as...
I think, it's funny, I watched something on YouTube where a lot of strongman comps were getting away from it from the amount of bicep injuries they were having.
That makes sense. I think it's mostly because they were doing just big-ass tires.
For a lot of reps.
But medleys make sense. So if you get a little bit smaller one, you put something else in there, like a tire flip for a distance.
You've got a truck pull arm over arm, a car deadlift, a rising bar Viking press, and the God of Stones, which, listen to this thing. This thing sounds super interesting. So for my weight class, it starts at 95, 130, 165, 200, 230, 270, 300, 360, and 380.
8 or 9 stones?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Just
Yeah.
loading?
Athletes will start over the first stone, 90 pounds, stone over bar.
Wow.
Which I'm like, that is such an interesting, to me, test of fitness.
Yeah, because there's
a lot of dudes that you got 1 or 2 or 3 stones. Let's see how you do at 8.
Yeah.
Even if it's light.
That's cool. I like that.
I do too.
You don't have to warm up for that.
I
warm-ups in the first 4 stones.
I felt like that about when CrossFit would do the clean ladder.
Yeah.
Similar concept where I'm
Yep.
you can't get complacent or sleep on some of the lighter ones either, because then your form starts to break down, and then ones you would think you would hit, you're not going to.
Because you've got a number that you can hit, like 380 stone. You're like, maybe you're like, all right, I'm great that I can get 380
Maybe
stone.
fresh and warm.
Not number 9.
Right. Especially when you're in the moment,
Yeah.
adrenaline's roaring, you're trying to keep your cues together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love things like that. So we'll super typically do like a 10 down and 1 bench press. 10,
Yes.
87 all the way down, climbing.
Right.
And then I always have an idea of where I want to get for one.
Yep.
Never get there.
No.
It's like probably maybe 90%.
90% of what you
Yeah.
think you would be.
That's
able to get.
awesome.
Yeah. So really cool comp. Yeah, I was sharing that. I can't remember what it was actually for, as far as there was a thing behind it. But yeah, that sounds like a really cool comp.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's earlier in October too, because we are still going to have Oktoberfest here.
Yes.
And we might tweak the events a little bit to make them a little more strongman-esque. They're already pretty strongman.
Yep.
It's 1 rep max back squat, but maybe we'll do something different. Maybe we'll make it like an axle bar or something.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, something different where you can still add weight to it. And then max reps bench press. And we typically say like, so if you're over 225 pounds, you do 20, or like over 205, you do 225.
Sure.
If you're under, you do 185.
That makes sense.
Like 2 different, that's it.
That makes sense.
And then sandbag over the shoulder, max reps in 90 seconds. Because you can have 2 go head to head,
Ooh,
2 people at a time.
I like that.
And then last man standing sled push. Keep adding weight.
Oh.
Yeah. But you got to get the weights right so that way you're not pushing the sled for half an hour.
Also true. Yeah, you kind of got to start
Yeah.
kind of heavy. Ooh, I like that.
And in here, so we did this last year in New York. It was phenomenal because we had one stretch of turf. It was good turf, not like our boat carpet. So we'll see if I can find some putting green turf to replace it, but I just don't want it to come up during the road. And they had the sled with 4 posts.
Oh, okay.
So you push it one way and somebody else
can push back. I like that.
One direction.
Like the Rogue, was it the dog sled or something? I don't remember what it's
I
called.
think that's what it was.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, maybe it'll be time to buy one of those.
Maybe.
New turf and that. You just set it up.
There you go. Heck yeah.
But I'd like to add another strongman element to it.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to kind of muse on that.
Kind of play with that and
Yeah.
almost do a run through, tweak it.
So let's talk more about competing.
So one thing you said last week that really like resonated, I think, was we were talking about how the actual strongman show. I'm trying to remember how you phrased it because I loved it. How you're showing all the work you did. It's not we were kind of went down a rabbit hole of like event training versus accessories versus like your block training and how that transfers to event training.
I think what I said was an expression.
An expression of strength.
Yeah.
Dude, I chewed on that. I really liked the way that was phrased I went into this entire week with that on my mind of I need to work on block training and accessory training more than event-specific training because the event is the expression of the work I did on my block training.
Right, and it's the skill.
Yes.
So there's a skill acquisition.
There absolutely is.
So I used to draw this pyramid, right? So the pyramid is you climb the pyramid and you become more specific as you get closer to the event.
Yep.
In powerlifting, it's like your variation at the bottom is GPP. So you're 12 weeks out of an event, and now you're doing like push-ups and pull-ups and some step-ups and just things, and you're moving weight.
Yep.
And then you start getting into like, okay, now I'm doing 3-board press, 2-board press, floor press.
Right.
And we'll just stick with the bench press.
Yeah,
and then as it gets closer, now it's competition press.
Right.
And it becomes more specific. The same
Yes.
thing with strongman.
Absolutely.
But it's even more diverse. Because
Yeah.
even especially if you don't know what your competition is going to have. Because now you got to say like, you need the deadlift, you need to press overhead.
Right.
And then squat becomes an accessory.
Yes.
Which is super interesting for strongman because very rarely does a squat show up. But you have to do it because it makes your deadlift better.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, it's like, could you train the log for 12 weeks? Sure.
Sure.
But you're going to get way stronger in overhead. There's a reason that like the most weight ever put overhead is with a barbell because it's balanced correctly.
Calibrated.
So you get super strong in those movements, and then you start mixing in the skill stuff closer and closer.
I think another dynamic is actually, I think we talked about it like, just because I have a 12-inch log doesn't mean that 12-inch log handles the length.
Oh yeah.
There's so many other variables that come into even just event-specific training.
Mm-hmm.
The implements are different.
Yeah. Dude, there's so much that goes into competing.
Yes.
And I think too many people look at the competition things and they're like, let me train all these on their event day.
Right.
But then, so for example, like I'm going to do logs and do an overhead day, so I'm mixing the log and I'll do my strength, and then do my frame carry and then do my accessories for lower.
Yes.
But when you do a frame carry and then an hour later you do a log, that's a whole different world.
Whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, like you said, you got to plan for those little like on a rifle, I tweak my track. on the very first event overhead. Now I got to figure out how to get a stone in my shoulder with a tweaked wrist. So like,
right.
There's
such a weird injury too.
It's happened before.
Has it really?
It happened probably 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Like that. So I went through this phase where I was big into strength. I was doing all that, and then tweaked, rest, come back, tweak, rest, come back. It was like a rhomboid or rhombus, I don't know, some muscle that is like deep in here.
Deep in there, yeah.
And I would have these times where I'd wake up and I couldn't turn my head. And like Britt we'd call King Water Chiropractic in New York because he was a power lifter. Mm-hmm. Like, yo, I gotta come in, can't turn my head. We'd come in and it would sound like if I ripped this piece of paper, he would like, and then crack it. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Like on the way there, I couldn't even hit a bump. It was so bad.
Oh, it was so bad?
Yeah. Wow. And to this day, I still don't know like exactly what it is.
What deep down in there is some type of scar tissue or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like how I hold my head or something.
Weird.
But, so I went through this phase where, and I finally had enough. And I said, I got to change something. And it's interesting because I was probably, I think we had Hadley, so the early 30s. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was done. I thought strength was done.
Yep.
You know, I had done all these great things and now I need to explore others. So I got rid of the barbell weights, everything. For like 6 weeks, all I did was calisthenics.
Okay.
And like I learned like animal flow and like movement-based stuff.
Yes.
And got a little thinner, you know.
Yeah.
And then I added in kettlebells and I went deep into the kettlebell route for a long time.
Yeah.
Started to add strength back. Moved into the camper to travel out here 4.5 years ago.
Yes.
And back deep into kettlebell because it's all we had.
Sure.
Kettlebell classes, all this stuff.
Love kettlebells.
Yeah. And I thought I was done with the strength stuff.
Sure.
But I think it helped fix me.
I could see that.
Because the kettlebell stuff was like, now all of a sudden I'm doing different positions.
I would say a lot of things more open.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when I got back into strength, which I thought I never would do, it all rocketed back up again. And I think the kettlebell stuff helped it. So maybe it was like a transition I need to make.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. And that's the weird thing about injuries is they say that like it's supposed to, injury is a teacher because it teaches you something.
It does.
I had this conversation with Jason earlier about my knee. Mm-hmm. And what I think it taught me, because the orthopedic surgeon 9 years ago told me that I would never do, quote, power squats again.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, watch this, you know?
Right.
But he thought I would never squat again because I had a knee scope and the back of my patella, it was all like messed up and whatever. But I hate when, we can go down this rabbit hole too, I hate when doctors say this to people.
Yes.
Because this orthopedic surgeon was not a lifter.
Sure.
And there's science, but then there's like the truth. And it's weird to say that because like science is a hypothesis and then you can test a theory, you can support that hypothesis and prove that. I can prove that this is right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's right all the time, but they can prove that in that instance it is correct.
Yeah.
But there are other things. Like to him, what was proven was that somebody with my injury and my thing would never power squat again, quote unquote. Current one rep was 425 back then.
Yeah.
I've hit 500 since then.
Right.
So I don't know if it's just a pig-headed to prove it wrong, but
probably a combination.
I think that there's so many people that aren't pig-headed that will go through an injury and doctor will be like, you should probably never do this, and they don't do it.
And they take that to heart.
So limited.
And I agree. I hate when people get that kind of information and then just take it to heart rather than even getting a second opinion or getting a completely different, like, if you have a Western medicine doctor, go get a different maybe outlook on the situation, and I promise you're going to get a different answer.
Yeah. The human body is amazing.
It is.
There's so many things that I think we're still learning. Mm-hmm. How audacious is it? I don't know if that's the right word, but to think that in 2023 we got it all figured out.
Oh, right.
Because in 1973 they thought they had it figured out.
Yeah.
And now we're like, oh, look how dumb they were. You know,
right.
What's going to happen in like 2073? We were like, can you believe these guys thought that like if you injured your knee you could never use it or whatever?
Right.
You know, because they're going to be like stem cell and that stuff through like airwaves or something.
The stem cell thing's kind of interesting. Like, not a new thing, but I definitely feel like more readily available.
Yeah, there's a lot of clinics popping up.
Yeah, I mean, I watched when Martin Lacey's went and did all the stem cell stuff down in Colombia for his hip, and it was like interesting. Like, such an interesting.
I think this podcast is full of non-truths and non-facts, non-fact checks things, but I'm pretty sure that if you get stem cells in the United States, and I think this is the process where they extract your own, like, so they do like platelet-rich plasma. Mm-hmm. It basically is the stem cell stuff, right? Yeah. And they spin it, centrifuge, and they're only allowed to spin in a certain amount of time in the United States.
Okay.
So it only separates, or they're only allowed to let it grow for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And so you only get like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then in other countries, I think they're whatever, do whatever you want. So they let it grow a ton, and then you get a ton of stem cells.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Who's Tony Robbins?
Yes.
Did you hear his stem cell story?
Yes.
Where he like shattered his body essentially,
Yeah.
like snowboarding.
Yes.
And he's like, and what was it? I don't know, we'll call it his shoulder.
Right.
He shattered his shoulder. And he's like, I went and got stem cells. And he's like, 3 days later, not only was my shoulder back to 100%, but so was my knee.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. And like I got chills, and I was like, how do I get like a shot of this?
A shot of stem cells.
Yeah. Well, of course he's multi-billionaire, so he goes all
That's how.
wherever in the world.
But I feel like it's definitely. I feel like down the road, I think that's probably the new thing medically. Is like stem cells more readily available.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine if you just like fix things?
Over.
Yeah. So I wrote down competing. We keep getting way off.
Yeah.
Are you ready? You feel ready?
I think, it was funny. I was talking to Stephanie a little bit about this today. I think it's so funny leading up to a comp, the highs and lows mentally you go through, also based on how you're feeling. Like, do you really feel like your diet was 100% tweaked? Your water, your sleep. I think there's so many external factors that go into even just your day of training. Do you have a good playlist? Again, did you get enough sleep that night? Did you get enough carbs? Do you get enough water?
Are you talking about like for a training day or for comp day?
Both. So I feel like leading up to it, Colorado Strongest, I actually feel really, really excited for the events. And I think we talked about this, that like I love how Brando programmed this one of, I think it's a really good broad spectrum of strength, because it starts off with the max effort log where you pick the weight, which I think is super cool. That it's not necessarily a set weight. I like where you kind of get to pick the weight, because I feel like for you as an individual, that's your opportunity to push your boundaries on where like how your training's been. So I'm really excited about kind of pick your own weight for the log.
It's like powerlifting almost.
Almost.
On that event.
Yeah, same rule. Yes, so I'm really excited about that. That's cool. Then it goes into, for me, a 380-pound Husafeld stone carry, which for me, I'm really excited about, because the last comp I did, Rocky Mountain Strongest, I did I think it was a 350 or 360, and it moved great.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for a really heavy Husafeld stone.
Is it stone or is it?
It's the loadable metal, the metal one.
Yeah.
And then right into a 600-pound frame carry. So for me, I love the events because for me, it really shows a blend of strength mixed with athleticism. Also from like that 0 to 100 horsepower. For me, a frame is a perfect example of that. Of 600 is not light, but you like running with it almost is such a good example of your explosive strength over a course of a plane. So I love frame carries, Husafeld carries.
Something that I think that gets lost when people watch like a really fast frame carry, they're like, wow, they're lifting 600 pounds and running with it. If somebody lifted their max, it wouldn't look like that.
Right.
You like stagger step and this and that, and maybe your feet will cross the wrong way and you drop and you take a few tries. But when you watch somebody pick up 600 and go with it, you're like, I'm so impressed. What is their max? What's the limit? 800?
Yeah.
Like, at what point does it not look like a run anymore?
Right.
Yeah, which is super cool.
And then I'm trying to reword this in the sequence. So for me, it's a head-to-head deadlift at 565.
Sweet.
I think, as I was listening to Brando's podcast the other day, and I do agree, I think deadlift is one of the most iconic, pivotal, static tests of strength that you can come up with.
Sure.
And
I agree.
And I like that. I think, keeping it simple, I like the way he does it. He has a press, he has 2 moving events, you do have a static demonstration of strength, and then I love the different level platforms with different weight stones. Because I think in the strongman industry, I think Atlas Stone is one of the most iconic things from ESPN era to, you look at Tom Stolman, who lifted a 500-pound stone, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
But I really think that's going to be a fun comp. And do I feel ready? I do. I'd be lying if I told you there wasn't some really stiff competition in this, which I would hope so. I think I loved watching old school Pumping Iron, where Arnold was kind of talking shit, for lack of a better reason, to Lou Ferrigno, where he was like, I hope he comes in shape.
Yeah.
And I feel like I love that even with Matt Frazier of, when he was kind of telling that to Ricky Gerard, like, I hope you show up because this win's going to feel real good when I crush you. And I would rather have an event, or I'd rather go to a comp where there's 15 dudes than have a comp where it's one other person. Because I feel like, and it's not a discount to anybody who does a comp where you're against one other person. I feel like at that point you're running your race against you. But I really like seeing how the way that I approach this comp stacked up to somebody else. And yes, there's a plethora of other things that go into it, like genetics, supplements, their training, their coaching. But I like when there's a lot of other people within that comp, because I think it's a good test of where you're at.
And a part of competing, I mean, yes, we're kind of in this area where like we want to take first or whatever and take it to nationals. That's part of it. But it's also like you want to go to compete because you're like, now's my day to like see all this training pay off.
People that, and this is no knock on, I guess, people who don't compete, I just am not wired that way. Like, I am wired to, I want to do work, but I want to see how it transfers to something else besides just going to the gym day in and day out.
Right.
And that to me, I was trying to explain this to me a little bit, like, growing up playing sports, I think that was always like a subtlety that was there of you did work out, you did the conditioning, and you went and played baseball or basketball or football, and you got to see where your abilities were. And I just like people who go to the gym and don't necessarily want to showcase that hard work just boggles my mind.
Yeah. It's such a different like bodybuilding. I don't know. It's weird because it's so similar, but it's so different. It's so similar because you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights.
Yes.
But
you're watching your diet, you're doing all the...
But that's where it ends.
And it's weird because, like, I think as dudes in our age group or genre, you grew up watching Arnold, and I think we all got into bodybuilding thinking, like, that's exactly the road and the route that I want to take.
Yeah.
And then it's funny, I feel like you talk to some people who've done bodybuilding comps, or, like, you kind of see some of that peeled back layer, and it's like, it's so subjective and political.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, that's always what turned me on originally to CrossFit. Like, at the time, was I'm like, you did the workout or you didn't. And then within CrossFit, there's absolutely weird things that happen subjectively during judging that you're like, that should have been rep, it wasn't a rep. Which then in turn almost turned me on more to strongman, where I'm like, you picked it up or you did it, and that's where the buck stops, like in the story. And I think the only thing in our world, and maybe I'm wrong, that I think that people are really hung up on lately is your overhead lockout. Feel like I've seen a lot of chatter and traffic on world record, circus dumbbell. Was it truly locked out? Did that person truly have control? I feel the same way with like the log or like axle press. I feel like there's been a lot of controversy surrounding world records as it applies to a lockout.
And even within a competition, you can see that too, because I was watching, Max Almaze. This guy, I forget his actual name, but he was phenomenally strong, runs through the sandbag medley, and it was like, boom, down. Okay, he picked it up real quick, which means he was strong, but like, there was a judge out there that went down. Like, versus
did you have control?
Right.
Like,
there's no standard to a set time.
No.
It should be like, show control for 1 second or something.
Some quantifiable, repeatable thing.
Because with especially the dumbbell, you're extended with one arm, you see it up. If you're waited a second, where are they going forward?
Right.
Or it was like down and then they drop, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like, it's weird. I think pressing's always a tough nut to crack when it comes to judging, because I'll even say, not even from like a pro level, like you can watch, World's Strongest Man or Rogue, and you as a spectator are going to nitpick, did Novikoff really have the press out? But I think for me, when we went to nationals and we had the sandbag press, I thought our judge was extremely good and fair. I watched the next lane. One of the strictest press out judges I've ever seen, where, it was like bicep to ear, and you better have complete and utter control of yourself in the bag. Then it was funny, like 3 lanes down, a different group came up and was like, they were given anything and everything under the sun as long as that sandbag went up.
It was above your head.
It was above your head, you were locked out somehow. So it's tough, but...
competing is you got to have thick skin to compete.
Oh yeah.
Not only for like the judging aspect, but for all the things that are going to happen throughout the day. This person, the equipment when I picked it up later in the day felt different.
Oh, that to me has been such a wild thing. It's like one of the last comps I did, like I went up to the actual gym. I trained with a circus dumbbell that I thought was the one we were going to use. And it was super funny the day of, it actually ended up being a longer circus dumbbell. So the actual length between the bell heads were different.
So your center was out for it.
And it jacked me all up. And it was really interesting. And the log, I trained on a different log, but luckily enough, just like I think that raw strength was there. So the log wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Had a block press, which was one of the coolest, most awkward events I've ever done. And then it was funny, I zeroed the dumbbell and I was super frustrated because I worked really hard on that. And then I zeroed that one. But again, it was funny, back to like, no fault of mine, just at the end of the day, I didn't pick it up. End of the story. For me, it was like, ooh, I didn't train necessarily on that dumbbell, went to pick it up day of, and it was hard to figure out in the moment.
It almost makes me feel as though, and this was something we were going to talk about way later, but I wrote stoic down here. And being stoic or mentally strong is the opposite of being entitled.
Yes.
And I think being entitled is when, like, I don't know, say you train for a competition and you game it and you're very much like, I'm one more rep than that guy or this or that, and then things don't go your way and you're like, but he did, and you feel entitled to what you believe is fair versus bring your A game, bring your best, come what may, give it everything. When you win, you lose.
I had one of the hardest humble pies in that exact scenario. I don't want to name the gym or the thing. It happened just for clarity, but we had a squat event. And I liked that the actual bar height to pick it was set, but where the subjectiveness for me came in, the stopping bar was the same. So if you were 5'5", or you were 6'3", that stopping point was the same. And like, that was one of those, I got done and I threw my belt. Like I was that upset. Like I was like,
so you might be doing an ass squat.
I was like, I'm doing super deep, past parallel, which for strongman's insane. Like getting to parallel strongman's kind of the ticket. And then like there were dudes who did like 14 reps and I'm like, ooh, that's not fair. But at the end of the day, that's one of the, again, back to the whole like having mental toughness of like, you know what, that event's done, it's over. I'm not going to be that dude that complains. On to the next event. Let that one go.
Yeah.
And you almost got to have that.
Yeah. And I think that if you view strength events and strongman and like, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of weird shit to do, figure it out so you can do it the best, you can't get upset when somebody who's shorter or taller or this or that, or they got this or that, or the sun was in my eyes or whatever, because there's no rules in the jungle. Really, when you strip away the idea of like man-made competition, like what are we doing here? We're trying to figure out who's the biggest animal, strongest one out here.
Yep.
We figure it out. Yeah.
I even took a step back and, ate my own humble pie of like, I'm tall and I'm good at rowing. Does that mean a dude who's 5'5" is going to complain?
Right.
No, he's going to get on the rower, we're going to row. The dude who has to do a 10-foot wall ball shot is doing the same wall ball that I am.
Yep.
And I can't complain.
Let's reset this. We're going to do it in blocks.
Yep.
All right, we back.
Second block. So, two things. Nationals. 2024. It's coming to Colorado.
I know.
Shout out to Iron Titan, Justin, Katie, super excited.
I'm running out of time.
Are you gonna do it?
I gotta see what's coming up.
Okay.
We've had a lot of changes in our life. Opening this gym.
You've had a ton.
The recent housing crisis and move due to sewage backup and all that, but we're in a great place now.
Yes, you are.
I have slowly started sneaking my strength back up.
Yeah.
And it depends how deep in the year do qualifying events go.
Don't quote me, because I probably need to look. It goes until, don't quote me, I want to say it was almost like a month or two before Nationals.
Oh, so even in the spring?
Yeah, because I was going to say,
I thought it was just in
I qualified in February of the year that I went to Nationals in June.
Oh, gotcha.
But I want to say mine was probably one of the last cutoff comps.
Okay. That's good to know.
There is one that gives you plenty of time. Shout out to Austin Trotter with Built for War. They're doing a holiday one in December. And they've got a sandbag, like a Max sandbag shoulder, which I think was a super cool sound event.
Is it USS? Yeah, so I could be 220. Yeah.
I feel like that's your jam.
I know.
I feel like if you don't try, I feel like you regret it.
Yeah, that's true.
For me,
it used to be, because when I was just coaching people, it used to be like I was getting people to nationals in New York, out here, and then all of a sudden I was like, I just want to get invited to nationals.
Right.
And that year that you were going, I was like, this is the year I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Trained, went out, got invited to nationals. That's all I wanted. Immediately, you're like, kind of want to go.
Right.
Kind of want to go and see what happens in nationals. You know, like go in and I just don't want to be last. You know.
I hit that goal. I was not last. I was very happy.
Nice. I mean, it's hard to do because we're not on gear.
No.
And let's be honest.
And it was funny. There was a very clear line to me of.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say there was a clear line. I feel like there's a line and there's a gray line between people who are on gear with natural ability. Then I feel like there's a line of you're just naturally ridiculously gifted and offensively strong.
Yep.
Then there's us mere mortals down at the bottom. But, dude, I think you should try. Like, I myself will be at a wedding, so I have zero regrets missing nationals next year. However, I think you should try.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to just go.
Yeah.
I said, like I looked at the nationals that I would have gone to.
The one in New Hampshire, right?
Yep. And it was like a conga line style deadlift.
Yes.
I started at like 610.
Yeah.
And I think my max was 615.
That was a hard zero for me. That one, that was it wasn't a mammoth.
Oh, was it? Okay. It changes.
Don't quote me. I want to say it wasn't a mammoth.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, because the first event was one of the coolest events I did in Charlotte because it was the sandbag clean and press, keg clean and press,
block,
and then the sandbag blocks clean and press. Really cool. I thought it was a very unique event.
That's cool.
And an iron cross, which also was one of the coolest implements. So it was a cylindrical tube, cylindrical sides, and then they filled it with chains and weight. So it was
essentially like a zerg.
It was a shield carry mixed with like a hussy, but it felt way better because I feel like with the cylinder you really could get a better lock on it. And I think because of the cross members sat higher, it just to me it felt better. Like Husa folks to me don't feel good. Like they're a really really terrible.
I honestly hate all carries.
Okay.
All front load carries.
Yeah.
They just feel so bad.
They do. It's just it's amazing because I feel like when you do CrossFit. You do for us, I would say maybe being bigger dudes, you do burpees and thrusters, you don't breathe, you're done.
Yeah.
You die very quickly. That to me is a front carry for us. You pick up something heavy front carry and go for a while, like you're like, I'm done, I can't breathe.
You need to be prepared to not breathe.
Yes.
And walk like a pooping cat for a while.
Yes.
Because that's literally the stone carry. I always come back to that stone carry. It was here, and you're just like hunched forward in the most, like the worst.
That was such an awkward event.
Yeah.
It is funny, a caveat, we did back to the weird like failing of equipment at one of the Estes ones, we did a sprint Zerker carry axle bar. And it was like, and it was heavy. It was like, don't quote me, it was like 320, it was somewhere between like 280 and 320.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool event because I've never done an axle bar Zerker with a turn for like max, or for like speed. And that was a really cool event.
That's neat.
Yeah.
What I just saw a rifle had a dead hang.
Yeah, so they brought the World's Strongest Man event back with the dead hang, which I thought was a really, I will say too, because like I shout out to Sam, my buddy Sam went, and I looked at the dudes in his weight class, which were like the super heavies.
Yeah.
They were on for a minute plus. I was like, good on you, big boys. Like,
I think that's who I saw from Sam's post.
I was like, man, like that's insane. Like a minute, like I don't know if I could do over a minute like right now, but I mean I thought that was a really, really cool. Rifle ran so smooth when we went.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think similarly though, I mean that kind of took the place of ours was just the hold.
The farmer's hold.
Yes. The farmer's hold. And I love that they took that idea, the farmer's hold, and said now your body weight is a factor.
I would, it's weird, and I don't know if it's just like a grip pain difference. I would much rather do a dead hang any day of the week.
I think so. I think so. I think also like you can kind of relax into that and just grip versus farmers, you need to like all of a sudden your traps and shoulders
everything is set. Yes. And then it's another one of those things, like, I'm not one of those people, like, people tell you all the time when I first got into this, like, just go to a dark place, a happy place, don't think about it. I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, this sucks, I'm not having fun, and I don't know how anyone turns this off. So it's always funny, like, if you told me to pick it up and move, totally cool, totally on board. But you're just telling me to stand there?
Like the bear hug challenge, the rogue bear hug?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't do it, but
I practiced it just to kind of see, and I'm like, this is miserable. Same with the double. I really like the concept of it, the double barbell.
Oh yeah, the farmer's hold.
The farmer's hold with the double barbell, which pros and cons. I think it's a very unique thing they did without a center knurling, and just the fact that I feel like because of disproportion between your right and left, I always felt like my right, I could always find that center fulcrum point. This one, I was all over the place.
It's cool because they're really making it accessible to everybody, which I'm sure was the point.
Yes.
I love the get-up one. I have never done a get-up with a barbell.
Yeah.
I love Turkish get-ups. You know, up to like 100, whatever.
Yeah.
The kettlebells, and I did the barbell, and I was like, this is ridiculous.
Did you get the shirt?
Yeah.
What was it?
The red one.
It's a red one. Oh,
yep. It's red. And actually, I had it on the back of my car earlier, and it's somewhere in the street. I gotta find it later. Funny story, that was just today. Yeah, I had it on today. And
what are the odds of you having a shirt, us talking about it?
Yeah, it's somewhere in the street out here. I'm pretty sure it's fell off my car. I gotta find it. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
But yeah, it was super cool with the barbell because trying to find the center knurling.
Yeah.
But it was only get up, not back down.
Interesting.
So you start on the ground, and then you get up and you just dump it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got to 135.
Which to me is insane. That's some big boy. That's a big boy Turkish get up.
But man, it kind of disappointed me. I don't know, because like 135 on a barbell is not a heavy barbell.
No.
Because, I don't know, we could curl 135.
Oh, right.
So like when you say, 135 pounds on the bar, you're like, that's nothing. But like you say 100-pound kettlebell, and you're like, whoa, that's big.
Right.
I think just because it was a barbell, I was like, I should be like 185.
Do you remember like what any of the ballpark winners were?
I want to say it was like 200.
Holy cow.
Yeah, there's some, you know who I think did really well? I have no idea what his name is. I can look him up, but he was Kentucky's strongest man.
Really?
His Instagram handle is BStrongKY.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's super heavy into kettlebells.
Sure.
But then he competes as strongman, does really well. He's got like 700-pound deadlift.
Oh yeah.
And I think he transferred really well. I think he did really well.
I want to say, and again, I don't fact check me, people on YouTube, like please. I want to say I thought one of the dudes who took between third and first on the double barbell was a strongman. Because I want to say I thought I saw somebody post.
Probably.
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
But.
You know who took first on the Echo bike? It's my buddy Zach.
No way.
You see that one?
I did. Well, I saw that. I didn't put that together.
Yeah. I forget how I even met him. Zach Vogel. I met him somewhere like on Instagram or something a few years ago.
Sure.
And then like we've always connected. And one time I went up there. We hung out in his garage and trained. And he's coming out, you know. And then I saw Rogue post him, like he actually went up to the pumping row.
Yes.
For the Rogue, the 2K row.
Yes, the 2K row, and then
so we did that in his garage.
Bench, yes.
And then he's very competitive.
Sure.
You know, he'll compete in, I think, was it like Deca and High Rocks and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. He's probably 6'1", 230, just ripped.
Jeez.
Super, but he's like an endurance athlete too.
Kind of lives a hybrid life. Yeah.
Definitely. One of the unicorns.
Unicorns.
He did the Echo Bike one. I think he won first place.
That's crazy. What's the numbers were insane.
Yeah.
Like between both, because they had what did they have? They had a 5-minute max calorie challenge, and then they had the max time it takes to get to 100 cows, and it was, or was it 50? I'm sorry, 50. It was 50 cows.
Yeah.
So there were dudes doing it in 27 seconds, and you're just like, my life's not together.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I think they do that with a lot of theirs, where they'll have like different prizes for different things.
Yes.
I think the Pump and Row had one. Gosh, what was their? There was a prize for the fastest 2K.
Okay.
And then there was a prize for the best score, which was the 2K minus like a second per rep.
Per rep on the bench.
Right.
Yeah.
But they had like two separate ones. Yeah.
There was one I actually regretted not doing this year on the Rogue, was the the carry, because this year they didn't do the bear hug challenge, they did the bear hug carry. So it was an actual just distance loop or lap thing, which I'm like, it was a very short distance, and I think it's probably why I didn't do it, because I'm like, I feel like that's very monotonously boring, but here
the road challenges are like, here's how we find superheroes.
Like very
people that just like specialize in one thing,
but obscure things too. Like, and that's what I've enjoyed about it, because it's not like Ole or strongman or CrossFit. Like they're very, like you said, very one-offs, even more down in the weeds specialty people.
Complete Human Performance. Are you familiar with the company?
Yes.
Alex Viala.
Yes.
Mammoth of a man.
Yes.
700-pound deadlift.
Yes.
Massive squat. Ironman triathlete.
Yep.
Very much science-minded into like hybrid training.
Yes.
Concurrent training. Yeah, let's crack that meat while we're doing this.
Let's do it.
What are we drinking?
Redstone Meadery Prickly Pear.
Ooh, sweet. Oh yeah.
Which I saw that, I'm like, you know what, you can't go wrong with some prickly pear.
So, Complete Human Performance has a yearly competition they call the Crucible.
Okay.
You have a month to complete all the events.
Okay.
Ready? It's a super total.
Okay.
So, squat, bench, deadlift, snatch, clean, jerk.
Ooh.
And then they've got a, hey sir, let's do this. Ooh.
That prickly pear hits you in the face, and I feel like it has a nice smooth aftertaste.
Yeah. I don't know why I expect it to be bubbly. I don't know why it's, because it popped.
Because it looks like a white wine or even like a champagne would, so that's probably why it gave you that, like, it's going to be fizzy, and it's definitely not fizzy. It's very prickly pear.
It's like super smooth. Super smooth.
They're all Crucible.
Yep, super total. Squat, bench, dead, snatch, clean, jerk.
Yes.
Best of each lift.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like in one session or what. I don't know all the rules, but
sure.
I think you've got like a month to do all of it. There's that. There's a 5-minute max reps kettlebell snatch.
Oh, okay.
With like a 70, I think. There's a yeah, and then there's a 6-hour run for distance. Yeah, I'm gonna look up the events. Because it looked ridiculous, and it's like the ultimate like mashup.
Interesting. That one of my buddies who's still in the Army loves the Secret Service kettlebell workout. Have you done that?
No.
Oh, buddy. After you're done, you should look that one up and give that one a whirl, because I don't quote me again, don't fact check me here, I'll look it up. I think it was like a 35-pound kettlebell, but you can't ever put it down.
Okay.
And it's like a certain amount of like snatches, like and I'm trying to remember if it was like time or reps. But anyways, one of his like favorite go-tos it's called the Secret Service Kettlebell Challenge.
Is it what, so snatches?
Mm-hmm. I like the kettlebell. Yeah.
Like long cycle stuff.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
I'm gonna find that one too.
That was a good one.
Super total, endurance foot race, and then a tiebreaker event. Wingate test, 2-minute test of max calorie. I don't know what they do it on. Oh, and then 30-minute one-armed kettlebell long cycle.
Ooh.
Yeah, holy cow.
That would wreck.
With a 70-pound kettlebell.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
that's
so
brutal.
They've been doing it for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And like to look at the people that win it, they're so focused on just these, like there's no junk in their training.
Interesting.
Like they are powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting for 1 rep max.
Correct.
And then they are periodizing their running for speed and distance.
Yeah.
With perfect like 6-hour windows and like it's the difference between like hybrid training, which is like I'm going to do it all,
right,
and concurrent training is like I'm going to train 2 opposites and I'm going to cheat on this one with this one.
Interesting.
And I'm not going to tell the other one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to tell running that I'm lifting because it's going to be a different day or a different time, and then I'm not going to tell running or lifting that I'm running.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's so like unique. And I think we see a lot of that now. There's some people coming out of the woodwork that are phenomenal. Like Fergus Crawl, he's one of them.
Yeah.
Familiar with him? He did so what's the David Goggins 4 by whatever?
It's like you run, 4 miles every 4
hours 24 hours?
24 hours?
Well, he did a 4x4 by 48. So he did it for like 2 whole days.
Gross.
He also, gosh, he's got a bunch of them. He's like the new, Ross Edgley. Ross Edgley, I think, started a lot of this. With like the world record, climbed rope as many times as it takes to get to the height of Everest.
Yes.
Which culminated him swimming around Great Britain nonstop.
Right.
For 9 months, which was absurd.
Absurd.
Like 6 hours on, 6 hours in the boat. 6 hours, Like his legs atrophied, his muscles were like.
Oh, I'm sure.
Craziest thing.
Yeah.
But Fergus is doing these like, he had a 5-minute window to deadlift 500 and run a mile.
Yeah.
Clock started when he started the deadlift. So he had to finish the deadlift, put his shoes on, and then start the mile. So like all within a 5-minute window.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he's just like pulling these numbers together. He did a 12-hour, it was a 1,200 powerlifting total, immediately followed same day by like a sub 12-hour Ironman.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's like tying these things. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's kind of cool.
I love seeing it.
Dude, I love some of just again, like back to the rogue thing, just like I like some of the hybrid challenges, I really do. And even like, I still like to see some of like the one-off things, like even tying it back to strongman, like Tom loading a 500-pound plus stone just seems inhuman.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy, that's insane. Same thing to me, I look at somebody who did 50 cals on an assault bike in 6 seconds. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
2 cals a second?
Dude, the internet has set the bar. Like it keeps raising the bar for people.
Yeah.
I think, what's the old story about the guy whose name I can't remember, that they used to say back in the day that nobody could run a sub 4-minute mile.
Yes.
And then the one dude did it.
Right.
And then the next year a bunch of other people did it too.
Yep.
Because it becomes possible.
I still feel like one of the, if to me you want to find like the most well-rounded, person, I love the 5-minute mile, 500-pound back squat, 500-pound deadlift, all within one day. Like that's insane. And the fact that multiple people have done it to me is so cool as far as human performance goes.
Because I think that started as like wasn't Dave Castro said it? He was like, here's a great challenge. What if somebody could do that?
And it was funny, he said it in like one of his documentaries, kind of as a joke. He was like, in 10 years, people will have this, a 300-pound snatch, 400-pound clean and jerks, 500-pound deadlifts mixed with a 5-minute mile. And like, I remember watching that, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
okay. And then it happened, and it's like,
just human potential. I think part of it is we're getting better at training multiple modalities at once.
Absolutely.
But the other part of it is information age.
Information age.
And then the last is like possibility.
Yes.
It becomes possible. Like, I didn't know that this could happen until I saw somebody do it. And like, oh, well, now that's normalized because they do it. Now I can do it.
I think the amount of people in the pool, I think, really helps because, like, I remember watching like a Brian Shaw documentary where he talked about like when he first got into strongman, there was no Titan Fitness. You couldn't just go online to Rogue and buy strongman equipment. Like it was.
Yeah.
And I even look at like a CrossFit gym, like growing up, like in a 24-hour or even like the Y, like nobody had bumper plates. Nobody had a deadlift platform.
Yeah.
And it's like it's such a wealth of pools now that I feel like as a fitness industry gym wide, people have a good concept of having well-rounded pieces of equipment.
It makes it easier to be a niche gym like this, where 10 years ago people would be like, so what do you do?
Could you imagine this concept 10 years ago?
I was watching, did you see Justin Medeiros do at the CrossFit Games? So the video of him walk on your hands, handstand push-up, walk on your hands, and then like spin over the bar. Like, can you imagine not knowing what CrossFit was 15 years ago watching this video? You'd be like, what is this?
I think people from the outside would be like, look at the circus that's in town.
Right.
Like 100%.
But people get it becomes so normalized and so regular, they're like, oh, I know, he's doing handstand walks, freestanding handstand push-ups and pullovers into muscles, like, yeah, and people are aware of it, which makes our job way easier to be like, what do you do here? Well, think CrossFit, but not this, and we mix in some power lifts, we mix in some bodybuilding, and then we do strongman type things that are available to everybody. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple.
And I was like, we're gonna do Turkish get-ups. And people are like, I've never tried one. Not a what? Like Turkish coffee? Yeah. Let me check the time on this thing. Because I didn't reset that. Oh, we got another 9 minutes.
Sorry, so we got 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's give you a couple points and I'll go into a couple points. How do you get huge?
Oh, yeah. So I wrote an article a while back.
Okay.
Because it started to kind of make me angry that I was living in a CrossFit gym and people love watts. They love the conditioning. I mean,
Yes.
that's what it's built on.
That's what it's built on. Metabolic conditioning.
That's where like the battle is.
Yes.
You know? So we're at 54, so we'll go to, just like 9 minutes.
Okay.
And then the article that I wrote was 5 ways to get jacked in a CrossFit gym.
Okay.
And one, I think I told the story last time about when I went to Florida and we lift regularly and they were like, you do CrossFit, you're big.
Yeah, you're a big dude, yeah.
Because lifting is a part of the culture.
Absolutely.
And I think you can't, and this is for everybody, you can't randomize your workouts and you can't try to do everything at once.
Correct.
If you want to get huge, you need to be focused.
Very prioritized.
And I think you need to get strong before you get huge.
I agree.
This is where I think a lot of people go wrong when they're smaller than they want to be.
Yep.
When they go to a bodybuilding gym, and they see someone with big traps made this, and they're like, okay, so traps, okay, I'm going to shrugs and biceps, I'm going to do the curls. Like, wait a minute, can you pick up twice your body weight?
Right.
Can you walk across the room with it? How many pull-ups can you do? Like, if you focus on those things, yes, you do need some of the bodybuilding things, but those are secondary.
Absolutely.
And I think that not enough people focus on getting strong. What you end up seeing is like a developed delt, a developed this, developed that.
Right.
Like a skinny neck.
Yes.
If you ever see that and you're like, ooh, I know you. I know what you've been doing.
Yes.
You've been trying to get big, but you've been trying to get strong.
Correct.
Right? But then, like, if you try to get strong, the neck will come, the traps will come, all that stuff.
Yep.
And then you've got the capacity to go back and do curls with a much heavier weight.
Absolutely.
And that's why you're going to get big.
Yes.
What do you got?
Oh, yours was short and sweet. I'm going to try and give mine. So mine's like actually a couple different points. I think, not to go down a rabbit hole too deep, I think having mind-muscle connection is one of the biggest arts that I feel like you have to have. And I feel like it's weird because I feel like you develop it over age and time. Because I can tell you, when I was first out of high school, I really heard about you have to have mind-muscle connection with your back because you can't see it when you're training. And I'm like, it's weird now because like I'll do a sandbag carry or a farmer carry or a deadlift or a pull-up and I really can engage mentally different muscles within my back when I'm doing certain things. But I think having that mind-muscle connection is number one. Like if you're training chest, you need to have that connection when you're pressing what your body's doing and not necessarily mentally checked out and going through emotion.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're going to lose the intent of the movement if you don't have mind-muscle connection.
Not only that, but like I totally agree with you, and I think mind-muscle connection is very much like a bodybuilding principle versus it's are we focus on the muscle or focus on the movement?
Yes.
Right? And I think that why people see injury is when they focus on the movement.
Yes.
Because what happens when you, like, let's take overhead. Let's take me, for example. I'll use myself. I was focused on, let me get this weight overhead. Let me get this weight overhead. Now, let me use my shoulders. And when my shoulders got tired, I still wanted to get the weight overhead.
Right.
And then something else took over and stressed that.
Correct.
Which happens a ton. You see it in the squatting, you see it in deadlifting. Your hamstrings, your glutes give out, and your back gives out, and you're like, no, I'm going to do this.
And
I'm still trying to pick it up.
That even boils back to, I think, a different rabbit hole of like breathing and bracing. I think it is such an art form when it comes to any type of, I've really learned that breathing and bracing transfers to everything that you do in the fitness thing that you're trying to accomplish. Because I feel like if you don't have a good brace and you're not breathing at the right time, that can make or break your squat.
Man, I think it's, let's reset this.
Let's do it.
I got a couple points. Want to go down this hole?
I say we're in it. I'm loving it.
That's what she said. That was a quick break. We're right back in it. We in it. All right, let me reset this clock so we know we got about another 25.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't do that last time.
No.
Clock. Stopwatch. So we're talking breathing and bracing.
Breathing and bracing.
Something that I think, if we're talking about how to get huge, which really went down a rabbit hole of like how to get ridiculously strong.
Yes.
The skill of creating tension, right, which is breathing and bracing.
Yep.
And today, coach bench press all day today.
Yep.
So saw multiple people come through, and my number one cue is don't let gravity do its job.
Yes.
And I'm really thinking that one thing that I'll do with some of my younger athletes is I want to hook up bands to the pull-up bar above it.
Yeah.
Put them around the bench press bar with the bar, and literally have them pull that bar out of their chest.
Exactly.
Because I think that's lost on people. when they're like trying to do speed reps or whatever.
Absolutely.
Like, your body's a spring. You need to learn how to
control that.
Hence everything.
And then let it explode.
And I'm going to take it a step further. I think that you need to get the confidence to be okay.
Absolutely.
With being the person that's going to be like, so when I benched today, and I went 295 for 4, by the way.
Sure.
Felt pretty good. It's coming back.
Heck yeah.
And but like getting into it, it was okay. We're chatting with this, okay. This,
Right.
And you sit down, you take a deep breath.
Yes.
You get sharp.
You get focused.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're not shaking it, but like maybe this isn't like the shake direct, slap me, do whatever.
No, it's
like nose torque,
control.
But you gotta get
control
to that point
focus.
where your whole body is tense and tight,
Yes.
and you create this like pull in, load a spring on the way down the bench, the way down the squat, because you can't find tension in the bottom.
No.
You have to build it.
And I think that's something, as a coach, like I wish I would have learned much sooner in life, because I always benched completely flat, feet weren't engaged, lats weren't engaged, and I can tell like it's taken probably 10 years to untrain those horrible habits of, again, finding tension in the bottom, which you will never do. And it's funny because I see even that with younger kids when they go, to the gym to bench. I'm like, I see like the legs kicking out, and you're just like, oh God, like
you're not okay.
You're not good. No.
Yeah, it does become this like I want to talk about Bill Kazmaier. Oh man, like what a true example. What is he? 3-time world's strongest man, 2 times world powerlifting champion.
Well, and they stopped inviting him to World's Strongest Man because he was so good and his margin of winning was so large.
Yeah.
It wasn't enjoyable for the show or people because of how dominant he was.
And I really think it's his like, if you look at some pictures of him, he looks like a crazy person.
Looks crazy.
And he just goes to this place and he knows how to build that.
Yes.
And I think that he's not afraid of what people are going to think of him.
Nope.
And he's okay to go to that place. And I think if people could take a little bit of that with any lifting, even if you're doing a set of like bicep curls, get into that, squeeze that bar, squeeze everything, create the tension and pull that thing up. Like that's how you get huge.
I completely
You don't get
agree.
huge by going through the motions. Also, like on that same note, you have to get to the point where it's so hard that you need to do that.
Yes.
And I think intensity is lost. This will be my next point, intensity. Completely lost.
Yes.
When people are like, they don't know how hard feels like. Yeah.
Right.
And that's a skill.
Yes.
And you can't be like, I'm new to lifting, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get huge, and I'm gonna go hard today. You're not. It's gonna take a while. It's gonna take learning your body, learning to get to the point where like, this is what difficult feels like, and it's okay, you're not gonna die, your arm's not gonna break off.
Right.
It's okay to go there, it's okay to squat deep and push through, and like, your face is gonna get red, and you're gonna be out of breath, and you gotta learn to brace through that, and get another rep, and get another rep. And intensity gets lost, and then you get these people with perfect form, and perfect technique, that have slow growth, and they don't get huge, and they're not powerful, and they're all show.
Yes. Gosh, it's really funny you say that, because I was listening to a podcast or something about how I feel like finding that fine line of, I feel like you absolutely have people who are stuck in one box of like, they're gonna go super light because they want textbook form and they never want their form critiqued. And I use the bent over row as like, I feel like my flagship on this. If you've got people who are doing very strict controlled pendulay rows, right on. Then I feel like you've almost got the other end of the world of like, we'll throw in like a Jay Cutler or a Ronnie Coleman, where you got a lot of body motion. They're rowing 405 pounds for sets of 10. Is it a lot of body movement? Sure. But then again, you look at the other end of the world of, I think you have to find that nice balance of, you need some days where you've got good form, and then I feel like if you want to take your bigness to the next level, you're going to have to find days where you're getting a little bit more of that body movement.
I think people are afraid to get a little sloppy.
Yes.
And it's okay.
It is.
Like you almost, like you said, you almost have to go there.
Yeah.
You have to get in.
You got to toe that line.
And I think that's part of what we teach here, is I will constantly remind people that if I'm teaching you to do an Olympic lift, there's one way to do it that's perfect. And I'm going to look at every little thing. But if I'm going to teach you how to do something strongman, I'm going to give you some tips and send you out to the wolves.
Yes.
Like, here's some things that might work.
Right.
Go do this.
Yeah.
Like pick it up and say, well, it's going to flop, flipping a tire. Here's some things that are going to work well for you, but, the sled pulls yesterday. I watched so many people come through that parking lot and pull hundreds of pounds. I didn't think they could do it, and it was ugly. Mine was ugly. But if you're all over the place and you're this and your back's this and you're pulling, but like it's okay to go there sometimes.
And you're using, and the thing is, I feel like at that point you're getting your own body out of its comfort zone by using different stabilizers, again, back to breathing and bracing. You're using that brace differently than you probably ever have when your weight gets to that level.
Yeah.
I'm going to completely right turn, and I think those things also boil back to competing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even right now, we went out and did sled pushes and bench press. Even with me here hyping you hyping me, we're only going to take that dark place to consistently probably 80-85% of the time.
Right.
I love competing because it takes it doesn't matter that you're there hyping me, other competitors that are hyping me, like you're going to have to go to that dark place because it's forced and you have to find out if you can do it or not.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about competing too, is I feel like you'll never take your intensity to that 100% in training, because you can come in and day out and do your fundamentals, do your accessories, even do your event training, but most of the time you're only going to take it to an 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
but that's just
funny you say that, because we used to tell people all the time, there's training, testing, competing.
Yes.
Those are your 3 levels.
Yep.
Training is what you're going to do 95 to 99% of the time. And then probably every 4 to 6 weeks you're going to test.
You're going to test.
And that's, you still got one in the tank and it's beautiful.
Right.
Competing is, fuck it.
You're sending it on everything.
And that's where so you've got diminishing returns when it comes to what health and longevity.
Absolutely.
For sure. We're no longer competing because we're trying to be healthy and live a long time.
Correct.
If that's what somebody wants, maybe don't compete.
Yes.
Maybe just find a gym and, which is great too.
Right.
But man, competing teaches you a lot about yourself.
And I think that's, I think one of our points on our little talking point was mental focus. Last podcast we talked about grit and having mental capacity to do hard things. And I think one layer deeper we get into the mental toughness. And that's the thing I love about competing is leading up to a comp, you have to tell some of those dark thoughts of you're not strong enough, you're not good enough. Oh, these 3 people are in your competition. You're not going to party down with them. Mm-hmm. I love that, because no other time are you ever going to put yourself in that scenario where you got to tell your mental demons to go away. Yeah. Day of comp, you got the wrong tacky. You've got your soft belt Velcro just blew out. Mm-hmm. You still have to have mental capacity to go out, and you're still going to go do the events to the best of your ability. And I love that, because again, you grow when you're not in your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's another hard part about people or if you don't compete, is you're going to stay in that nice warm blanket of safety net. Yeah. You're going to go to the gym day in and day out. You're going to get strong. You're going to get big, but you got that nice blanket of.
And you know what sucks is you can do that and live a great life. Mm-hmm. And I say that sucks because it's no longer a necessity.
Correct.
It's no longer a necessity to be strong.
Nope.
Right? You don't have to pick up a certain amount of stone to prove your pay.
And
you don't have to.
You got to get on the boat. Yep. Absolutely.
You don't have to defend your family from wolves or tribes or anything. And since it's no longer a necessity, and you can go through life and you can be pencil thin and pencil necked, or have man boobs or whatever, and not, and never have to stand up for anything.
Right.
There are outliers. There are men that don't lift and don't do these things and are real stand-up men.
Absolutely.
But stereotypes are there for a reason, because they're usually true for the popular majority.
Yes.
The guys that are often the best men for their families, for their wives, for their kids, for their companies, for themselves, are the ones that know what it's like to face even manufactured adversity too.
Yes.
Right? And we have to do it in the gym, because how else are we going to do it now?
Right.
Unless you're we're going to go off grid.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to...
Yeah, go back to fighting the elements as our source of problem.
Yeah. And it sucks, because maybe it doesn't suck because now we kind of become an outlier.
Yes.
Well, that was something else I want to talk about too. For quite a while in the past decade, I think that people like you and I are an outlier.
Yes.
And people that we surround ourselves with, it might not feel like it because we surround ourselves with like-minded people.
Yes.
But if you go to Walmart or the State Fair, all of a sudden you're the strongest person there. You're the most fit person there.
Yep.
You're the most capable person there. If shit goes down, you're probably the person they're going to call.
Yes.
But in the group that we surround ourselves with, anybody can handle it.
Correct.
But I think so many people are starting to realize it, and it gives me really great hope.
Yes.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about this with like climate change and nutrition and all that. Like we have hope for the next generations because there's so much information.
There's so much information out there. Yes.
But with strength in men, I was listening to Mind Pump podcast. And they were talking about like the 4 things that are making men weak.
Yep.
And it started, the opening line was, men today are too weak. And I was like, I'm a little bit offended.
Yeah.
Only because I've heard it from them. I've heard it from Andy Frisella. I've heard it from Bedros Cooley. And I've heard it from all these like top dogs.
Yes.
And then I've heard it from the second layer of the not so famous people and now all these people trying to like promoting masculinity and doing this. And now you take a look around and the room's filling up.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people doing it.
Yep.
And I don't think I need to do that.
Right.
I don't want to be this person that's like, all men are so weak. Because then you're trying to say like you're the only person that still has strength.
Right.
But there's a lot of guys out there that are doing it.
Absolutely.
And I really think that the next generation coming up, that's going to be a strong force.
Yes.
We're going to start seeing stronger men.
Which kind of leads to another point that we were going to talk about. So what does being not only mentally, physically, and spiritually, because I think all 3 play into where I'm going with this next point, why does being a strong person apply to you as a husband and a father of 2 daughters?
Because you just got to deal with shit sometimes. And I really think that's what it comes down to.
Yep.
I think just like you got to deal with your Velcro belt not working or you don't have the right tacky. I think that not only do you have to deal with it, and we do complain from time to time, but not complaining.
As much
is a big thing.
I think it's a huge component.
I think being there and realizing that it's not a fair world. Men are different from women in our needs and our perception. We are engineered and designed to want to fix things.
Yes, we're supposed to be a fixer.
Yep, and oftentimes that can cause distress when you're talking to your significant other and she presents to you a problem and you're like, how do I fix this? And sometimes she's like, I just want you to listen to it.
That's its own funny rabbit hole.
Yep.
Because we are absolutely wired and geared to identify a problem, eliminate the problem, and even circle back on that problem and figure out how we don't ever have to deal with that problem again.
Right.
And that is not how they work. They want to just vent. And without wanting to fix it, it is one of the hardest things as a dude to do is not.
So having the capacity to fix things. Or, how about this? Having the capacity to do violence.
Yes.
Having the capacity to produce force. Having the capacity to like, just be capable in all things.
Yep.
But then having the wisdom to know when is it time to apply.
Correct.
Which I think really is the true strong man.
Yep.
And that comes into like emotions also. So let's take it from the opposite side of that. Like if you're driving in your car and your kid's in the back seat and somebody cuts you off or yells at you, what are you going to do?
Right.
Are you going to be, I'm the bigger man, you, this and that, and like, I'm going to kick your ass.
Right.
Or you're going to be like,
you know
sorry, you're having a bad day, dude, go ahead.
Yeah.
And I had this talk with Hadley, who was 7, about, I said, I feel bad for that man. I forget the instance, but she was talking about a guy who yelled at my wife and daughter for walking in the road when the sidewalk was whatever.
Sure.
And he was on a bike and he like, yo, get on the fucking sidewalk. He's there all to like, and she was like, yeah, I was really angry. And I was like, I feel bad for that man because he's a weak man.
Yeah.
And I'll tell that to her. And I have no problem saying it to her. I was like, he's not in control of his emotions.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't have the ability to down-regulate enough and like look at the context and see who he's talking to and be like, I'm the bigger man. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go around. Have a great day. You know, it's how we should handle it.
That's one of like the biggest points from Jocko that I always take away from one of the earliest podcasts I watched with him of like, I'm trying to remember how he phrased it. I want to go find it now because like, it's like if you get angry and express frustrations and you lose your shit, you're no longer in control.
Yeah.
And he kind of phrased it like, you're weak mentally if you can't control it. And it's like, I always have to channel Jocko a lot, like day to day of like, I would want to lose my shit on somebody. And I'm like, nope, because that means I'm no longer in control.
Epictetus was a slave. So I read a lot of the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday, and then I also listen to Ryan Holiday as he shows up on other people's podcasts that I respect whenever I get a chance. He was on Jocko. He was also on recently. I think I heard him on Rogan, a couple other places. But he was talking about Epictetus and this idea of being angry, being offended, being whatever. And he's like, somebody doesn't perform an offensive act. You decide to be offended.
Yes.
And boom, because Epictetus was a slave, and he wrote discourses as a slave.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm a captive. I don't have control over this situation. These people are doing these things to me. But what I do have control over is how I perceive what's going on around me.
Yep.
And he took that huge opportunity to say, philosophically, I can perceive this as the worst thing that's ever happened to me, or I can perceive it to be like, I feel sorry for my captors because they don't know what they're doing, this and that. And he really talks about like perception is everything.
Absolutely.
Everything. And like that guy on the bike that got mad at my wife and child for walking in the bike lane, he perceived to be offended.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to go ahead and be offended that they're here. And that's a huge part of like being in control.
Yes.
Is how do we view the world?
Yeah. One of the stupidest, like this is going to be a stupid analogy, but I think it has one of the most weirdest applicable things to my life is the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Okay, yep.
You know, he's briefing the new bouncers.
Yeah.
And they're going through scenarios. Like, what if this dude does that? What if this dude does that? And he's like, be nice. Be nice until it's time to not be nice. And I don't know what it is. I loved that montage of that. Of like, that's so true. Because I feel like if you're nice to a certain point, like you're in control. And then there's obviously... Yeah. There's always going to be a line that you're like, no, you're crossing that line. It's no longer time to be nice. But there's been plenty of opportunity.
I don't remember that from the movie. But I love it because that just made me think of, I had not done nearly as much work on myself in my early 20s as I do now.
Yeah.
But in my early 20s, I was bouncing. And I remember one specific, I also did 17 years of Taekwondo.
Sure.
And what they teach you in Taekwondo is it's self-defense.
Yes.
Not offense. Don't use it, don't use it, don't use it, don't use it. If you need it, it's there, neutralize. That's
right.
it. And that's what we learned.
Yep.
From the time I was 5 to the time I was in my 20s.
Yep.
So in my early 20s, I was a bouncer.
Sure.
And the guy comes up to me and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, he looks at me, sizes me up, he's like, I kick your ass. And I was like, I believe you. And he was like,
looked at me, diffused the whole situation.
Yeah, I was like, I believe you, because I had nothing to prove.
Nothing.
That's the other thing. And he was like, I'll kick your shit out of you, whatever he's slurring. And I was like, yeah, I believe you. Please don't do it. That would suck.
Yeah.
And he was like, whatever, walked away.
And walked away.
Yeah.
Completely diffused that situation.
Yeah.
Because again, there's nothing.
And I don't care what he's going to say to his friends.
No.
He's like, I told that bouncer off. He's afraid of me.
Right.
I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Here an hour.
$10 an hour.
I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
Right on,
man.
man.
You probably won't even remember it.
Nope.
But I think that's part of it too. Is like, so that's another Ryan Holiday, killing the ego. Ego is the enemy. So you kill this idea of need to prove. There was a guy in Stoicism, I think Marcus Aurelius writes of it, where he stood on. Actually, no, don't fact check this because it definitely wasn't Marcus Aurelius. Somebody, a guy who stood on the banks of a river, and then a conqueror, maybe Genghis Khan or somebody like him, came and said, "You need to move." And he said, "Well, why? Who are you?" He said, "Well, I'm the man that will conquer the world." And the guy said, "Well, I'm the man that has conquered the need to conquer the world."
Yeah.
Which was like nothing matters anymore.
Right.
If you conquer the need to conquer the world, all of a sudden, like, I don't need this and this and this and your approval and this thing to prove to you how tough I am or whatever.
Oh,
it's like come away.
Ego's the biggest enemy as a human I think you could ever face.
Sure.
You know, it's funny timing. We're reading this up because like Stephanie and I were talking specifically about the comp coming up, and she was feeling a lot of pressure today. And, she wasn't hitting the weights that she wanted to hit, per her prescribed program. And, I told her, I said, I think the hardest thing for you going on right now is you came in and smoked novice. I mean, you found out you were very naturally good at, strong woman events. You won your thing, now you're in the open. And I feel like now your family's behind you, your friends are behind you. They've seen what you're doing, and now you're riding this wave. And today, it didn't go. And now you're getting that ego pressure of like, oh shit, I have to perform to appeal. And it's funny because like I told her, like I felt that way going into nationals last year. Like I won, I won the comp, I went into nationals, and I felt a lot of pressure to like do well. And then, I feel like leading into it, it was like, man, this is not going to go well. And I feel like it's funny, very liberating after nationals I absolutely embrace and love failure because it's one of the biggest life teachers you can have, and I feel like it really helps expose you because I feel like if you're just naturally good at everything, you're never going to grow.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, we're not for rabbit. But yeah, ego's the enemy.
No, I like this rabbit hole because it reminds me of there's a book by Carol Dweck called Growth Mindset.
Okay.
And she talks about the difference between focusing on success and focusing on effort. And that's exactly what happens, and that's maybe what happened to Steph today. We all do it from time to time, where we get into this, we are rewarded for outcomes, success, not for effort. And if we're rewarded for outcomes, we no longer want to put ourselves in a position where there could be anything but a good outcome.
Right.
And they did this massive study, and she writes about it in her book, where they took kids that were praised. You're so smart. You're so awesome. You're so great. You're so talented. And those kids didn't enter advanced level classes.
No.
Didn't, because they never wanted to disprove you're so smart.
Yes.
So they found the lower level
and just hung
things
out
that they
there.
could like crush. They knew they could crush.
Right.
Versus the kids like, you were working so hard. You're putting in so much effort. And those kids might not have got the greatest grades,
right,
but they always pursued the next step.
Absolutely.
Wild how that happens.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so hard to do as a parent too, because you want to be like, well, look what you did, you're so smart. And I catch myself all the time. Brittany's much better at it than me, of being like, you tried so hard on that, it showed.
Right.
You worked so, like, and it's really hard as a parent. Dude, there's so many ways to fuck your kid up.
Oh. The possibilities are endless.
Right?
Yes. Well, I think like the funny thing I'm really excited for you about now with your two is the differences. Something that I've really struggled with as a parent between all three of them is they all three learn completely different. And I think that's been such an interesting part as a parent to figure out of, Alice learns one way, Landon learns one way, Tristan learns one way, because the thing is you as a parent want to sit down and very disciplined and regimented style explain like you're going to do math, English, but you can't, they don't have the same perception of what you're trying to explain in three different ways. So
dude, imagine if people knew that about learning when we were coming instead it was like, you didn't get this, you're done.
And I hate, like, it's so funny you say that, because like I love the differences in the amount of willingness that teachers and parents are now willing to put in, because like I look back at our generation where it was, I can imagine even further generations back where it was.
I remember, I think it was 6th grade, we had to do a salt dome map of Egypt.
Okay.
And I put together the salt dome map with like the pyramids, and I painted them yellow, and I drew the black lines of the brick, and I put like a little tree, a little green, so it was mostly yellow and blue.
Yeah.
Because Egypt, I imagined to be kind of boring in color.
Yes.
And I made it realistic and this and that. I labeled everything in black, and I turned it in, and I got a B.
Sure.
And I approached the teacher, this was 6th grade, and I was like, why did I get a B? She's like, well, you didn't use a whole lot of color. If you look at Joe's map, it's this. And I was like, you can't judge me based on a relative thing from Joe when I completed the assignment.
To the best.
And she got mad at me. Dude, I had such a problem in school. I used to argue with teachers all the time.
I know.
Yeah, and I probably still have that streak. I'm terrified for my kids and me, because I have to deal with, they're going to have the same streak that I have.
Yes.
But yeah, it was this, that I was getting graded based relatively to how another kid did, but my perception of how I operated was super realism. I want to do this and not just slap a bunch of colors. And if teachers back then were like now, they'd be like, this is Ryan's style, this is what he does, he's super attentive to detail.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because like both my boys and I'm going to sound very, maybe misogynistic is the word I'm going to go with.
It's fine, we're doing it.
Boys, I feel like, are naturally gifted with ADD. We're not built to sit in classrooms.
Sure.
And it's funny because I both mine have really struggled with it, but I find it also funny that teachers are willing to work with it. They're like, hey, if you need to stand up and have a stress ball, go for it. And I'm like, I could imagine that when I was going through school. Like it was one of those like, oh, are you just jittery? Sucks to suck.
Let's reset. I'm going to change the battery.
Deal. That's probably a super good idea, because I feel like
we lost it last time.
we lost it right after this one. Yeah. And we're back. I'm not quite sure where we left off.
Yeah, that's what happens when you take a 90-second break.
But
you
know what? We'll go backwards. So, all right. So I'll start for me, and then we'll get back into. So for me, I think growing up, because it kind of ties into like we talked about stoic and physicalness and fatherhood, and for me, my dad was always a rock. Like just a pillar of stability and a safety net for me growing up. And I think, I never knew if my parents were fighting. I never knew if we had money problems. And again, it was just always a constant rock in the storm. And I feel like for me, I try and find some balance. Like I want the boys to always know that I'm there for them. If they need me, I'm there. If Alice I always want Alice to know that I'm there for her. And I think being that stoic anchor is very fundamentally engineered in our DNA.
Yeah.
Even back to like the husband thing, like I always want to be very rudimentary to me. Like I want us to have a cave, a roof over our head. I want us to have mammoth meat on the fire to let her know that I can fucking go out and get us a mammoth if we need to. And be a provider and be a rock for the family. And I think a little bit of some balance that in the day and age that we're in is you can still be strong in all of those capacities with a splash of vulnerable. Because I feel like that's something that still kills the last generation a lot quicker is they had a fear of being vulnerable. And like I will absolutely tell Mia, like if we're, if I'm having a bad week, I'm going to be able to vent to her versus I feel like our generation parents, nope.
I'm glad you went that route because that's what I was going to ask you about. Because you mentioned like you never saw, not seeing your parents fight is important.
Right.
Not letting your kids see disputes. Really, there shouldn't be a fight anyway in terms of a fight because that comes back to holding your emotions.
Absolutely.
We're not slamming doors. We're not slamming covers. We're not name calling.
That's a weird thing too. Like I would never imagine doing is like slamming doors or breaking things. Like that's a weird thing. But
yeah, it's such like a childish.
Such a childish thing.
And if you do that, stop.
Yeah, if you do that, don't
stop breaking things.
Don't be that guy. Like control your emotions.
Yeah. But letting your kids see your vulnerability is important.
I agree.
Mainly because it humanizes you. It lets them know, like, hey,
you're not
through this too. But also teaches them what to do in that moment.
Yes.
Because if you never see a situation where your dad can get vulnerable,
right?
How do you know how to react? Right? And I think we've gone through probably the most vulnerable thing that I don't think a parent should ever have to go through when we lost a child. And then Heather was there through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And what was amazing to me was she was a part of it. And we went back and forth for a while. We're like, what do we tell her? How do we tell her? Because she was 5, almost 6 at the time. And like, she's so smart. She knows.
She knows.
And when we come home and Mama's not pregnant anymore,
right?
We got to explain it. And we're like, how do we tell her everything? Because then it would just be a part of her life. And then it was like, this will never not be a part of her life.
Correct.
But then it allowed us to open up to her and really have those conversations with her and let her see how we dealt with it, how we stayed strong in our marriage, strong in our family, clung to that, strong in our faith.
Strong in the faith.
And
such a big part of it.
And then move forward, and now we have another child.
Yes.
God willing. Obviously we still think about and grieve all the time.
All the time.
But she watched this whole thing as the big sister.
Absolutely.
And then what happened was we started to hear from friends of ours that said, hey, they would say, I was talking about your situation with my parents, and they told me they lost a child. I had no idea. It's a different generation.
And I was going to say, it's such a weird generational thing of like, and I'm not going to say just like our parents, but like previous generations,
sure.
They would lose a child, and it just like the appearance was just, they just moved on.
Yeah.
And it's very cold, callous thing versus at the end of the day, and again, like God bless you, I couldn't imagine what you guys went through. I just can't put myself emotionally in that situation, but I'm like, I would never want to go through that and then just have like some cold door callous, like, oh, I lost a child. On to the next problem.
Like how do you
couldn't imagine?
It needs to be shared and dealt with.
Absolutely. It's the only way through it.
Crazy outpouring of like community support and everybody.
Yes.
And even with that, it's still like Britt and I had conversations where like all these people were amazingly rallying around us.
Right.
And we still felt like we were alone.
On an island.
But together.
Right.
And like nobody knew, even though we wanted to let everybody in and like share in this, but like at the same time we're like nobody knew it was us, right? We were in this like little, so I couldn't imagine not sharing it.
Right.
I couldn't imagine not, so, and then with your kids also.
Oh yeah.
So she saw that, is a part of that, and I think it made her grow up a little bit more.
It does.
But
I also feel like she has a better emotional understanding that you are going to come across really hard things emotionally in your life, and it is okay to talk about that with people. Because I feel like that's such a positive, because I think it's really easy to look at every generation and it's just all negative, it's all bad. But I think this is one of the better things that's come out of our generation is the approach of you still can be a strong anchor for your family, but you can still convey like, I had a really bad day today. And it's totally normal and it's totally fine to talk about.
Yeah, because they're also learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And what's more is not only is, hey, I came home and I had a really bad day today. You come home in a bad mood, it happens.
It happens.
Right? We're not infallible, it happens. And you come home in a bad mood and maybe your wife calls you out on it or something, you're like, I'm sorry. Bad mood today. Here's what happened, here's why. But you know what? I'm really grateful for this and this. And then you show that in real time work through these issues. Dude cuts you off. You're white knuckling, and you're like, did you see that guy? he gave me the middle finger. That means he hates me.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And you know what? I really hope that he has a bad day and doesn't go on and crash through somebody else.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, like, not only was it a lesson, but nothing makes you a better person like having to set an example.
Absolutely. When
Hadley was born, we said that there is no parenting book ever that can teach you.
Nope.
And there's nothing that makes you be a better person than having a child, because now they're not going to listen to you. They're just going to do what you do.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if I want to raise my kid right, I have to fix myself.
Absolutely.
And really, that was the biggest like self-improvement motivator. And it was to have your kid say, you're Superman. You're the strongest man. And I'm like, can I get that in writing? Because you're 7, and when you're older, you're not going to think that. But, to think like, you're the biggest, strongest, best, like, you can fix anything, you can do anything. Like, I feel really bad when kids don't have that.
I couldn't, and I just like, as a dad, I can't imagine being a deadbeat dad. Or just like that kind of outlook, considering the opportunity you have.
And everybody has it.
Yes.
You just spend some time paying attention to how you treat your body and lifting heavy and getting strong and learning the lessons and practicing stoicism and practicing being in control of what you can control, which is your thoughts, actions, and reactions.
Right.
And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And the rest of it takes care of itself.
Yep.
And I couldn't imagine, so let's take like the being husband route. I always said, like, there's those like romance novels with like the dude, whatever. And I never ever wanted to be in a situation where my wife would look at somebody else and be like, I wish my husband was like that.
Thank you.
Ever.
Ever.
As callous as that sounds, or as
shallow and down in the weeds.
I don't give a shit.
But that's a base. I feel like it's a base level thing to have that outlook.
I owe that to her.
Absolutely.
Because she is the hottest, sexiest, most beautiful, amazing woman I've ever met.
Yep.
I owe it to her to be a specimen.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I'm a specimen, but I mean, like, at least
chasing that that outlook. Yes.
Yeah, and working on that and showing her I appreciate her enough to be the man that she wants. So she didn't ever have to be like, he's, The Rock's pretty cool, or like Vin Diesel back in the day. Or because there's so many women that like.
Oh, he wasn't what he was back in high school. Where they just lose themselves.
Yeah.
And and again, I think you do have to be well-rounded. Like, something that's one of my favorite things is me and I, we'll talk about, politics, religion, and I think I love having, those type of deep level intellectual conversations. I feel like that really is a show of different strength. On top of, she wants me to get the groceries in one trip. Right. Got it. All those farmer carriers are going to pay off.
Still got a free hand. What do you want?
Yeah, what do you want? But no, I think having the boys has been amazing when it comes to the gym thing, and even Alice, Alice is so strong, and Tristan will by himself just be like, I'm gonna go do a workout, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine that at
You're
his
like-
age. And that's just it. And I'm like, dude, right on. Like, or I'll be doing a workout. I'm like, hey man, he'll be like, hey, can I hop in? I'm like, absolutely.
That's so cool. How old is he now?
11.
Yeah. And something else he did when we were in your garage, and like I know of him more than he knows of me.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you post him.
Oh, yeah.
Lift and Tristan Ironsides.
Yes.
I think it's awesome. So like I didn't think to like, I was like, hey man, what's up? This and that, and and then he came up, he's like, hi, I'm Tristan. What's your name? And I was like, you're doing it. Good job.
I made a really big point with them to. Landon's a little bit more shy, but I always made a big point of. I don't believe that chivalry's dead. I don't believe that being a gentleman's dead. Like I feel like again it's very popularized in social media that chivalry's dead. Dudes don't open the door. Like I still go out of my way to open the door for Mia.
Oh yeah.
And I want the boys to see that. And I think this boils actually back to being a father. Like early on in our relationship, I made it very clear to Alice that I'm like, whoever you find, I just want them to treat you well. I want you to be treated with respect. The boys, I'm like, you see me open the door for mom for a reason.
Yeah.
You see us have very deep conversations about things that we don't necessarily agree on, but we still talk about them, we work through them at a very deep level of respect for each other. And and back to the physical part, like if she needs me to go get a 50-pound bag of dog food, like cool, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think all of that is, hoping build that next generation.
It's so interesting to think about the differences between setting an example for boys and girls from a father's perspective. Because I'm not raising a boy, but raising a boy is do as I do as I do. Raising a girl is like, in a way, I think it's harder as a man. Because we grew up, we were little boys, and we know what little boys do, and we know like the energy levels and where to like, gotta play swords, let's do that, like whatever.
Yep.
But raising a girl, you're kind of like, I have to be the absolute best example of a man because she's gonna find somebody like me.
That is such a weird nail on the head, and that's why it's almost funny. And it's such a hyper thing for me of like whenever I'm around Alice and Mia, I make such a point to be the best version of myself, even in like a moment where I'm mad or I've had a bad day.
Yeah.
I never try and take it out on anybody because again, I want her to see how much respect level I have for Mia and how well I try and treat her. The boys is super funny because they're a ball of energy, they smell. And it's been super funny, like just the differences. Like for me, I love both because actually at the end of the day, I'm blessed. I got the best of both worlds. I get to channel my Disney princess with Alice.
Yep.
I watched Predator with the boys. Alice loves Predator more than the boys, which was its own weird win. But it's such an interesting thing as a dad, and I wanted to touch on this, just like your outlook on having daughters, because it's been such an interesting growth of My Little Pony suddenly to Barbie, like the movie, and there's a lot of life that happens in that. And I'll say I think I've been lucky or blessed enough that she hasn't been boy crazy, which I feel like is a good thing. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'll ever be ready. And I think it's a weird thing as a dad with a girl. I don't think we're ever going to be ready for it.
Right. One thing that I've tried to avoid a lot, Hadley's only 7, but dads of young girls like to joke like, you won't date till you're 30. You won't date.
It's unrealistic. Not going to happen.
But, so, parable, I didn't have cable growing up.
Sure.
It was, we're not going to get cable. I had 2 stations, 3 if the wind blew the right direction. We're outside all the time in the fields, getting cut by cornstalk things or whatever.
Yes.
And then I went away to college and we had cable, and I would buy a sandwich and I would sit in my room and 4 hours would go by.
Yes.
I had never seen it before. I had never watched it before.
Right.
I don't want to set this expectation of like, no boys, no boys, no boys, no boys, and all of a sudden
You're gonna
she comes out of the world, she becomes...
You're going to tighten the screw and you're going to have an opposite effect.
Yeah.
Because I feel like growing up, we all knew those types.
They go crazy. So it's like, how do you
Find that balance.
And then I realized, because I work with a lot of teens.
Yes.
So I realized, because once I start to see teens these days, there is no respect for the older generation.
No.
There isn't.
It's
And
weird.
there's no amount of muscles or guns that's going to be like,
It's so weird.
yes sir, Mr. That's not going to happen.
Not anymore.
Instead, it's going to be like, hey, what's up, man? this and that. I'm like, oh yeah, fine, yeah, have a great time.
Yep.
And it's up to her at that point, and
Yes.
it happens now, to set her up to the point where she's only going to pick the guys that are like me.
Absolutely.
I want the little piss off runs to come up and be like, yo, what up? And she's like, get out of here.
Right.
She's like, I got deal with knowing you. Get out of here.
Yes.
You know, I want to teach her, like, she's finally starting to get into like some jujitsu.
Oh, yeah.
I really want her to go down that road.
Yeah.
I want to be so capable and intimidating and confident
Yes.
that the wrong dudes won't approach her.
That level of confidence is such a big
And that's
thing.
unrealistic.
It is.
You know,
But it's
if I
still
shoot for that,
There you go.
some great things will happen in the process.
Absolutely.
You know, and because she's her own person, I've got a very cautious daughter. You know, some girls are not super cautious, and they.
She's your firstborn.
Yeah.
Wait till the second.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I can already. We've talked about it.
She's been fired.
So we got Hadley Freya. She's. You know,
Oh, yeah.
We got Brita. She's gonna be wild. I can already tell.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that'll be interesting. It'll be a whole different ball. But
It's going to be exciting.
yeah.
Like,
I love being a girl dad. Love being a girl dad.
it's so funny because I love it. I really do. And it's super funny because I don't know. It's just for so long it was all boys and it was all Ninja Turtles and it was all Transformers. And again, it was all G.I. Joe and boy stuff. And oh man, having a girl is just such a game changer. And for me, it's for the bet. Like, I love it though. I really do. Like,
I think all dads should know at some point what it's like to raise a girl.
absolutely.
Because I think it changes you completely.
It does.
And Brittany and I used to say a lot that like God gives you what you need to develop as a parent.
Yes.
And there are some dudes that get boys. Try some of that.
Yeah.
And they get boys, and then there are other dudes that like get girls.
Yeah.
We assumed that we were going to get a boy. I
Yeah.
don't know why. We just did. And then when
Sure.
we got Hadley, we were like, well, what do we do now? We got a girl.
Yeah.
But it definitely brings out a softer side.
100%.
And it forces you to like channel that, really, in a way.
And it's weird because back to even like tying all the way back to like, I still want to be a gentle giant to her. Of
Yeah.
like, I want her to know that again, I'm still her anchor. I'm still a rock in the storm for her. I will still absolutely do all the things physically and mentally, strength-wise, to be there for her. But I also want her to know that like, I'm approachable. I am vulnerable. I do have bad days. And I think that's something that is a really good relationship builder. I can tell her like, you know, she'll ask me every day, how was your day at work? And I'll call her some days like, listen girl, it was a bad day out there.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, you know, there's a lot of times where growing up, like I would not know if it was a good day, a bad day. I just straight up wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And I feel like I love that the kids ask, we genuinely talk about things, and they get real answers.
I think it's important. It just, I think as generations go on, we learn more things about it. Can we talk real quick about completely opposite? I don't know why I thought about this. I guess I was thinking about like what kind of dudes that our daughters are going to go for. I was thinking about this trend of like the skinny guy. I just don't think I can grasp how a man can be like, you know what, this is okay. But I'm not even talking about the guys that are skinny and want to be strong. Oh, sure. You got it, man. Thanks. Security is shutting. Yeah.
Security's closing
Cool.
the door.
I didn't actually know there was security here.
I didn't know I didn't know there was a curfew, dude.
Oh.
You know,
It's kind of cool that we got security in this building, though. That's
I
awesome.
feel a little safer.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. And you know, it's funny. The problem is I feel like the boys are kind of unicorns already within a group of people who are very technology driven and not necessarily physically driven. But I like that Tristan's sole goal is to be the fastest kid in his gym class. Like that is his goal. And I agree when it comes to the whole like, and I don't want it to sound like super jock douchey, like I want Alice to go for the fastest or the biggest dude. Like, but I agree, I feel like it's just weird, like normalcy to being like short and skinny and like not necessarily like aspirations, and it's weird. But I feel like it's a girl, like a disconnect between us, because I guess I feel like growing up, like you'd be like, especially for us, I feel like it's hard because you grew up around dudes and you had a very clear like disposition of like, ooh, if we get bigger and stronger, there's really good things that come with that.
Right.
From every avenue. But I feel like that outlook, it seems like, has dissipated.
So do you think there are boys that are growing up and like without the example of stronger is better,
absolutely
capable is better?
I think this circles all the way back to the onset of this podcast of the necessity in today's era of being a man and being strong as a necessity is gone.
Yeah.
Because now, again, I attribute it to technology differences, but again, I look at now because of technology, there's not a demand to be bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah, and money.
Absolutely.
So if somebody's affluent, I'll tell you, when I was working landscaping, we had a job where it was to build this. Just build a bunch of that.
Let's do that kind of good thing.
Yeah, to build this area for a trampoline, and then we got paid to put the trampoline together.
Yep.
And it was this guy saying this was going to be a gift for his kids, surprise them with a trampoline. And then the only thing I could think of was, you just paid 3 other grown men to build a trampoline for your kids.
Which is insane.
And then your kids are going to see, you surprised me by spending money for me.
Yes.
And it wasn't an act.
Nope.
And I know that like there's like love languages work.
There's different, yeah.
Like fathers to kids too, and spending money and gifts, but like acts of service is a huge one, and to teach them that like doing things and like investing time and energy to like build something, even if it's not perfect, I think should mean more. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around the idea of like having so much money to think that it's okay to be like, I'm gonna do this for my kid, or what's another one? How about for your wife?
Oh,
so having somebody build something, having somebody do something. Or I saw this whole trend where you can pay to have somebody write a love song for your wife. You see this?
No.
Yeah.
What?
It's a great business model, right? So you can like give some information and they'll write like a really professional song for your wife. And then the advertisements are like, their wife's like, oh, so smitten, I can't believe you did that for me. And I was listening to the radio and the DJ, she was like, another example, she was like, and my husband did something so incredibly sweet the other day, she said. She goes, we bought these, these rubber rings because they were going on a missions trip.
Yeah.
You can't display wealth, so we bought these rubber rings. And the doorbell rang, and I had with friends over, and it's probably the rings coming in, and husband goes and gets it. And he walked in the room, and he got down on one knee to present the ring to me. She's like, it was the sweetest, most out left field thing. I was like, he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
He got the mail that you ordered and gave it to you, and just like, if he had decided to get them for you, I don't know. The bar is so low.
It's so low, and it's funny because I even think like for me, like this translates both in my construction career, civilian. I think the art of self-reliance is like on its way out, and it's so frustrating because again, back to the whole figuring out problems. And I feel like that's its own mental strength.
Yeah.
Like working through problems. Like you're going to come across things if you're doing like house renovations. Again, and it's like, if you want to spend 50 grand and redo your kitchen, right on. Good on you. Right on. If you have that ability. But I feel like it's always more gratifying, I feel like, to work through things. Even like, stupidly enough, like building the racks, building the benches. Super gratifying to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Versus paying someone to do it. But again, it boils back to the art of self-reliance.
Yeah. And then there's I think that's what people miss when you have that conversation with yourself, like, what are my resources? Is it time or money?
Right.
And you spend your resources.
Yes.
When you don't have a lot of money, you spend time.
Right.
And in any situation, you never hear about people that come from a lot of money that are like, wow, I really learned a lot about life.
I feel like it's always like that generational thing. Like you get the one generation that came up very poor, figured it out, made a lot of money. Then you get that next generation which really has that life disconnect because they've only had a silver spoon, and then you get that reset, that recycle.
And it's great to say like, okay, we don't have a lot of money, but we have a lot of time.
Yes.
So you invest time.
Yep.
And then the kids see you invest time, and they learn the lessons.
Yep.
Or they say, I don't have a lot of time, but I have a lot of money. So you invest money, but there are no other lessons that come with that.
Right.
But when you invest time, and then you learn that, you look around this gym and like, had they watched the whole gym come up?
Absolutely.
She used to play in here when it was still a gymnastics room.
Yes.
And she literally put a hammer through the wall.
Yeah.
Helped knock down the wall. And she did
and again, at that point, like she's, even in her little life, is invested.
Yeah.
You know, she has invested her own time and energy into something that's making her proud because of her dad.
And for me to be a perfectionist and say, this gym's got to be perfect, I'm going to hire somebody to do whatever, she's 7. She's not going to remember what this gym looks like because I'm going to have moved into a bigger facility.
Correct.
When she's 13, but she's going to be like, my dad built this gym with, you know, like, it's just, you can't compare to the lessons of being a provider, being handy, learning that. And it sucks when dudes come up and they don't have that. Like, they don't learn how to be handy.
You know what sucks, like, kind of its own weird rabbit hole is like, I feel like some of it skips generation. Because I'll tell you, like, my dad is one of the most handy people I've ever met. Like, carpenter by trade, grew up as a mechanic, like the dude, again, just a very generational difference.
Yeah.
And it's super funny because, like, for me, if you need help building a rack, or if you need help doing concrete, or if you need help doing like dirt work, like, I'm your dude.
Yeah.
Don't call me to do woodwork. Like, don't call me to do cabinets. And so it's really funny, some of the, I feel like you play with the gifts that God gives you.
Sure.
And that's what I love. Like, I love about it. And, you know, it's funny, I look at the boys and Alice as they're all very musically talented. And I'm like, didn't get a speck of what my mom had. My mom is very musically talented. And I'm like, it sucks that, in a sense, is cool that it skipped a generation. It sucks that I got absolutely 0% of that.
I got the music stuff.
Okay.
I can't sing.
Okay.
I love the idea of singing.
Yes.
But I can't sing. But I look at, Brittany can sing, but usually won't do it.
Sure.
Hadley, I don't know where she got it from.
Skipped a generation.
I was like, well, American Idol.
Right.
But like, I'll play guitar for you all day. Like,
All day.
I'm musical, but I can't sing.
Yeah.
You're right. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love it though. Well, how do you want to wrap this bad boy up?
Oh, let's see here.
I mean, I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
But I also felt like it was a little bit more focused episode.
Yeah, a little more serious. You know, it wasn't...
Well, it wasn't just strength. I feel like we definitely covered a lot of life philosophical discussion.
And I think that's the beauty of, this is the Two Strong Dudes show. This is our take on whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Viewed through a lens of being dedicated into strength training and what that has taught us, and then how we view world issues and life issues.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's a super meathead thing to say and think, but I really believe that a lot of the lessons that we've learned have come from being under a heavy barbell. You know, having to literally earn, because it's a great equalizer, right? It doesn't matter how much money, time, wealth, whatever you have, you get under a bar, you're literally just left with whatever your body can do. And you have to work. You can't buy it. You can't rent it. You can't have somebody else do it for you. You have to do the work yourself.
I mean, something that I like, just kind of a mantra that's always stuck with me that Jason Khalifa said is, if you bust your ass in the gym, that will transfer to every other aspect of your life. And I feel like it's so true. Like, me working hard in the gym makes me want to work harder at being a dad, a father, going to church. Not just going to church to go to church, but hearing it, living it, explaining it, to the kids. Like, what was your takeaway from the sermon today? And really getting their outlook. And again, it boils back to discipline and hard work goes a long way in a lot of different aspects.
So that reminded me of Francis Chan, wrote a book called Crazy Love, where the whole first half talks about not being a lukewarm Christian.
Yes.
And when you said you go to church, but you also get out and like, let me talk to my kids. What did you do today in the kids ministry? What did you talk about? Hey, wife, what did you think? Let's discuss it. That's really leaning into it.
Yes.
What people really can do as fathers and husbands and, you know, hopefully community leaders is lean into everything.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had to say, how do you be a strong man? Lean into everything. We talk about the intensity of lifting, but there's intensity in everything.
Exactly.
There's intensity of, hey, it's really extra hard to come home at the end of the day and be like, you know what? I'm not going to put my feet up and do this. I'm going to sit down on the floor and play with my kid. Or I'm going to do this or ask my wife what she needs. And that's intensity in its own way.
It's so funny you said that because, like, again, being that man, like, it was a good week as far as like kind of my last like push the gas pedal down.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, I am just sore and banged up.
But that's a good week. You feel alive.
No, I do. Like,
It's
that week right before a comp is, I think, the best and the worst. Like, because you just, I'm telling you, all week, I've just had the mindset of, even though like I feel bad, keep the gas pedal down because I know next week, a lot of mobility, a lot of foam rolling, a lot of, again, 50% of everything just move. But man,
if you can get a win this week during the last high training week, then you can say, if I can get a win when I feel like trash, imagine what I'm going to feel like.
And that's what I'm so excited to get really, I'm really excited for our team wide tomorrow because tomorrow's kind of the last big push. And then just kind of a nice 5-day cruise.
Yeah, tomorrow will be pretty good too. We're doing a little bit of everything.
Which, I'm excited about tomorrow. Tomorrow is just a little bit of everything, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Well, I think we probably covered close to 2 hours today.
It was good. We covered again. I feel like we covered. I feel like we covered a lot. And I'm excited for the next one because I feel like there's more strength, strength talk that it has. It applies to different videos.
Sure. We don't really have like a concrete way to wrap this up, so we could be like, we already did the one takeaway thing. Fuck it, let's just wrap it up. This has been Two Strong Dudes podcast. The Two Strong Dudes show. And let's go.